That sounds really ominous, but it is the last live stream on this channel for the year and for the foreseeable future. Um, I don't know if I'll be doing any live streams again, even if I were to come back to making content. I don't know. Whatever. So, the last live stream. Okay. Um, Let me know how the sound is. Sound check as usual. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And oh, oh, I wanted to say this really quick. If you hear any random alarms, sirens go off during this live. The building I live in is doing all this like equipment testing alarm stuff today and tomorrow, and they sent an email to the building. So if you hear any random alarms, I can't do anything about it, and nothing is on fire. Just it's just a building doing its end of year testing. I don't know. Just doing its thing. Good morning, Judette. Last live stream of the year. Let's go. Hey, Rachel. Hey, Ellen. Happy New Year to everyone. Okay. FYI, fun fact, New Year is my favorite holiday. In fact, I love it so much I celebrate it 3 times a year. I legitimately celebrate New Year's 3 times a year because I celebrate, the regular calendar New Year, January 1st. And then I also do Lunar New Year, which Koreans do. Not all Asian cultures do Lunar New Year. I think the Japanese do not do Lunar New Year. The Chinese definitely do. The Vietnamese call it Tet, I believe. But Koreans do Lunar New Year, and I love to do a little Lunar New Year because I love New Year so much. I love this idea of like fresh beginnings, like a nice reset. I love cleaning the house for New Year. And then my husband is Jewish, so we also do Rosh Hashanah because I love a good honey cake. I make a really good apple cake, by the way. So yeah, so we do that. And yeah, now that we've moved to LA, I was like, I turned to my husband. I was like, "You're an LA Jew now, so I have to take you to Cantor's, just so that you can have an opinion on Cantor's. You don't have to love Cantor's, but I think you're beholden to have an opinion on Cantor's that you could whip out at parties as a Jewish person who lives in LA." So I took him to Cantor's to get latkes for Hanukkah a couple weeks ago. So yeah. Sound is good. Thanks, Judette. Eleazar, hello. Epiphany, completely understand your need to regroup. We'll miss you and hope you will still return at some point. Thank you. Slim Pickens, hello, hello, hello. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of an AMA. And so go ahead and ask me any fashion related questions. Like while you're thinking up your questions, this is going to be my last lecture to you. And whether it's the last lecture or just the last for now, I think this is really important. I want to talk to you about what I think is the most important thing you need to learn to be successful. And of course, you should study the subject you're trying to be successful in. Okay, if you want to be a fashion designer, learn design, learn construction, learn how to communicate your ideas through some basic sketching skills, learn what tech packs are, learn import, export, all those good things. Okay, so of course you should learn the subject matter. But actually, when you're talking about doing business, starting a business, being in business with other people, or just even working as a designer for someone else, okay? Throughout the course of your career, the thing you need to learn is how to talk to people. And I don't necessarily mean it just in terms of social skills. Of course, everyone needs social skills. It's like, duh, Zoe. No, I mean a willingness to talk. And I'm going to give you a few examples, okay? I would have to say, out of all of my university students, the one who is currently the most successful, currently, because these things come and go in waves and, all that good stuff. But currently, the person who is the most successful out of all of my former students is someone who always spoke up in class. She asked a lot of questions. Okay. And I know a lot of people are afraid to look stupid by asking questions, but I promise you, like, unless it was something you missed because you just weren't paying attention, okay, most teachers are happy to explain things. If you didn't get it just because you were literally falling asleep, whatever. But teachers do not mind good teachers don't mind explaining things and answering questions. And 95% of the time, another student in the room had the same question and will be inwardly thanking you for asking the question in class. So there has to be a little bit of a willingness to look stupid. Not that you will look stupid, just a willingness to look like you don't know everything. And it is totally fine to not know everything and to reveal to people that you don't know everything. I think that asking intelligent questions makes you look smarter than acting like a know-it-all. Absolutely. So when you're meeting with vendors and you are unfamiliar with their product, don't act like you know everything there is to know about silk. Just be like, oh, tell me about your silk, and ask them all the questions. And like, there's also a level of not being afraid of confrontation. And I don't mean in terms of like fighting confrontation and arguing. I mean in terms of just bracing for maybe not liking the answer you're going to get. You're not going to like every answer you get to any question you ask. Okay? That's just life. Okay? In your personal life, in your professional life, whatever. You're not going to like everything that everyone says to you. Okay? And no one is owed you the answer. No one owes you the answer that you are looking for only your whole life. Okay? And so you have to like be willing to embrace that and learn how to confront that, and also to get over yourself. Okay? And I mean that in the kindest way possible, is you do have to learn to get over yourself. There's a certain level of hubris that comes from your unwillingness to talk to people. It's fear and it's a little bit of hubris. And you just have to let that go. There's a humility in really just like breaking the ice and talking to people and asking questions so that you can move forward. Okay? So that student I was discussing before, she would ask things politely, like she wasn't rude, she wasn't obnoxious, and she had a sense of humor about everything and about herself, and that, it eased the way for good conversation and we could laugh together and stuff. And as a teacher, I'd be like, oh, what's this? And then I would popcorn, like people would be like, oh, is it this? Is it this? And I'd be like, no, no, no. And that's okay. And you just have to be comfortable with getting rejected and being comfortable with hearing answers that you didn't want to hear, and then being able to move on from that rejection and keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay? And another example I want to bring, who is not a student of mine, is Christian Dior. Okay, Christian Dior. So in my Patreon book club, we are reading a biography about Cristobal Balenciaga. Okay, this one. And it's been a really interesting conversation. Hold on. Oh, I will never get over this little. I got my flu shot. Whatever. I'll get over it. But what's been interesting is to also read about these little snippets of Cristobal Balenciaga's contemporaries, which include people like Christian Dior, Hubert de Givenchy, Jacques Fath, Pierre Balmain, who else? Lucien Lelong, all these big, big names in couture. And one of the little chapters on Dior was really enlightening to me. I know a chunk about Dior's life and work, but something I didn't know before was that he didn't know how to sew and he didn't know how to make clothes at all. Um, so essentially, Christian Dior, he came from kind of like a hoity-toity, fancy prancy family, and they had envisioned a different career for him, but he liked fashion and he started work as a fashion illustrator, and he used to sell fashion sketches for cash. Eventually, he started working for Lucien Lelong. Now, not everyone knows Lucien Lelong. Lelong is, if you're into fashion and if you're into 20th century couture, you've heard his name, but he's not one of the houses that got resurrected like a Balenciaga or a Dior. It's but a lot of people know, and it turns out that Lelong was not even a designer. He had the brand and he was the owner of the brand, but he hired designers to actually design the clothes for his brand. And one of those designers was uh, Christian Dior. And he just sketched. He didn't know how to make things. And, you know, he praised Balenciaga a lot because Balenciaga really knew how to construct clothes. And it's not like he sat there and actually produced all his clothes, but he knew, like, he was designing as he was constructing, and his design was informed by construction and vice versa. And whereas Christian Dior just sketched a lot. And I want to be careful with that just. He sketched a lot. And I'm of two minds. Okay. Anyone who knows me knows that I think Christian Dior is highly overrated. But also, yeah, Dior, the man, like not the whole brand, but the man, he designed some really beautiful clothes. Also, he's overrated, but also he made beautiful clothes. And there's this section where the writer talks about how Dior got his original investment to start his brand. Like after he split from Lelong, he quit working there and he got an initial investment that would equal to about 1 million US dollars in today's dollars. And a lot of it was the book was comparing how Dior was super charming and really knew how to work the parasocial scene, and he was able to get very far in his life because he was good at talking and charming and greasing those wheels, whereas Balenciaga really got where he was because his craftsmanship was ridiculous. Like his whole career was really different, and the difference was like Balenciaga was not a very social person at all. He did not step out into the scene unless he had a very good reason to be at an event. And but we can't all be Balenciagas. He also had a financial backer that he befriended in Spain, so money is involved, but that money also, like Balenciaga's initial financial backing came from a friend. And so it is really about who you know and who you can talk to and your ability to talk to people. And there is a cynical side to that. This whole idea like, oh, talent doesn't matter as much as social graces. It's like, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far. Okay. The, like, no matter how good Dior was at schmoozing, he made really beautiful dresses also. Okay. So just because he wasn't some sort of like construction wonderkin like Balenciaga was, doesn't mean that he didn't make beautiful things. And so, how does that translate to modern life? It's whatever you don't know how to do, you have to be able to talk to other people to help you to do it. I had one of my I think it was my very last client call of the year last week, and they were talking about, okay, well, if I wanted to go to school, or take some classes in something. What should I take? And we were talking about things that she could hire, like services, excuse me, services she could hire, and things that were better that she know to run the ship. And so I was like, with marketing, like if you want to hire a PR firm, if you want to, find publicity, if you want to hire social media help, like you can hire those out. It's not necessary for you to get a marketing degree. Like there are plenty of firms that you can hire to do that sort of thing for you. And you need to understand construction to help your design work, but you don't need to sew the things yourself. Okay? You do need to know how the fashion business works, how to talk to people, and because you're going to be making those regular, everyday decisions on your own. Okay. We were talking about a situation where she didn't have a business partner. So, because of those things, you should be able to talk to people. And yeah, I know there's always going to be these genius outliers who make it despite their inability to do this and inability to do that. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about generally. It's really about how you're good at talking to people. I have a friend, and the way her career has shot up over the past few years is admirable. And listen, it's not anything I want to do. So I say this without a single ounce of bitterness. I am just literally so happy for her life. But it is because she's friends with everyone. And I don't mean that in terms of she already knows everyone. Long time ago, I was meeting this person. And so we have a mutual friend, and she was like, listen, this woman, there's only two types of people in this world. There are people who are friends with this person, and then there are people who have not met this person. And I have met a few people, like, I think everyone knows somebody like that, where everywhere they go, they are immediately like, can just like start talking to strangers and like shaking their hand and talk, like learn their life stories, blah, blah, blah. And she's one of them. And it's through these connections and these friendships that she forges, and she's not fake about it at all. She genuinely just loves to get to know people and just run around and chit chat. She's very extroverted. You don't necessarily need to be super extroverted. I'm not particularly extroverted, but I'm really good at when I am with a friend. Like if I'm by myself, I just like shrink into myself real hard. But when I'm with a friend, I don't know, like it gives me bravado to like go out and like talk to more people and be way more vocal and exuberant and social than ever. And I know there are a lot of things that I have gotten in my life through nurturing those relationships with people I genuinely wanted to work more with. And so, yeah, you have to do that. It's not enough for you to sit in a bubble and be the best at X. You have to know how to approach people, even if it's across the internet. Maybe you live in a mountain village in the middle of nowhere and you want to be a freelance fashion illustrator. One of the reasons why I'm tired of the internet is because the algorithm just is so messy. The algorithm is so messy. And so you can post beautiful fashion illustrations on the internet all the days long, but until you are at a point where you're approaching people and sending people things and messaging people and embracing the rejection notices you're bound to get, or the silence that is often the rejection, you're not going to get anywhere. And so that is my advice to you. Perhaps my last teacherly advice to you is learn how to talk to people, learn how to approach people, learn how to embrace rejection and get over it. Let the rejection hit and be like, you don't even know what you're missing. And then and then get over it. You need to learn those things to progress in your career. Okay. So, yes, whatever skill set you want to flourish and nurture and be a professional in, but also talking to people, approaching people. Don't be afraid to look a little bit stupid sometimes. Don't be afraid to look like not the smartest person in the room. You know, it's like most people who act like they're the smartest people in the room are A, not the smartest people in the room, and B, really annoying to everyone else. So, what can you do to practice? You just start small. Okay? Start with, first of all, caring less about what people think. And not in the I'm so rude and like, F off, blah, blah, blah kind of way, but just like your self worth isn't contingent on one rejection or even 5 rejections. Okay. And start small. You don't have to work with the biggest organization in the world. Just keep going and keep asking, keep approaching, keep emailing. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you know how to have the conversations you need to have to get into the spaces that you need to get into. Okay. So, the first time I ever went to a trade show, I just hovered behind my boss because I was scared. I didn't know how to have those conversations. I didn't know how to talk to fabric people. Like, old school garmentos are a different breed. Okay. They're a different breed than fashion folk. I love them. Okay. But man. And so back then, like, my boss had been in the industry for almost her whole life. She had inherited the business from her dad. And like, they have a vocabulary, I have a working vocabulary that I could not follow because I was new to the industry and I didn't know all the terminology. And so I'm just like ping pong looking back, like vendor, boss, vendor, boss, vendor, boss, vendor, boss, like trying to figure out. And like slowly over time, I would learn the words and, you know, uh, get a better handle. And you will too. Eventually, you're going to stop and be like, what does that mean? And have these conversations if you don't have a boss to look after. And you're going to get into the swing of things. But you really need to have those conversations. You need to be talking to people. This global industry cannot be done alone in a bubble. And like I've had clients who were looking for dressmakers in their local area and they're not near a fashion capital where there are a lot of sample makers. And so she decided to she had a dry cleaners that she liked to go to often, like for her own clothes. And she noticed they had kind of like an alteration side business. And so they she approached them and said, do you make clothes from scratch also, or do you only do alterations? And they're like, oh, we can make a dress. And she's like, can you make my dresses? And so that's kind of how she found her original sample maker. So just get used to talking to people, and it's not going to be the end of the world if they say no. Okay. All right, let's scroll through some of these comments. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, y'all been talking. Hoity-toity. Hoity-toity is like, I don't know. If I knew a better word for hoity-toity, I would have used it. I don't know. Someone who acts kind of stuck up and like know it all, you know. I don't know what that emoji is. Rachel, I also think Dior the brand is overrated. Glad to know I'm not the only one. Girl, the things I can say about Dior could fill a book. Not that I will write it, but whatever. Okay. Anna, hola, buenos tardes. Have a great day, everyone. Same to you, Anna. Do you get joint pain? No. Catherine, construction and fit knowledge both are skills being lost in the U.S. right now. Listen. This is why, I have a lot of reticence around these 3D models because there's really nothing like putting a dress on a human being and fitting on a human being. And I don't mean people with like model proportions. Okay. First of all, a lot of these runway model, like these big brands who do runway shows on size zero models, who fit on size zero models and do these big splashy runway shows, and their sample size is zero because that's what they're eventually going to show. Their business model is not predicated on clothing, so they're not a good model to follow. Their business model is around creating hype so that they could sell you perfume, bags, shoes, scarves, belts, what have you. And so they don't care to fit real women. And I don't mean that size zero women aren't real women. I just mean women in the whole spectrum of sizes. Even if we're only talking straight sizes, those clothes don't even fit like a full range of straight sizes either. That's why they're so afraid of plus. Because if you are trying to even put plus size models on the runway, you have to embrace like actually fitting garments on a body. And the reason why fashion loves a super skinny model is they're the easiest ones to fit. Not to say that you like there's no fitting involved, but they are the easiest ones to fit. So, yeah. And I understand that not making so many iterations in actual fabric is a sustainability measure, especially if you're a big house that runs a lot of samples and a lot of bodies, does a lot of SKUs, all that sort of thing. That could really add up. Like I've been to some sample sales where I'm like, I can't believe this is a sample sale. Y'all have so much stuff you're getting rid of. It's obscene. But at the same time, like I just don't feel like you're really getting to it until you're putting a garment on a body and seeing that actual body interact with the clothes. So, Rachel, networking has gotten a lot easier for me since I moved to a different country and learned a new language. And guess what? Nobody really cares when I make a mistake. Still working on it, of course. Yeah. Yeah, nobody super cares except the French. The French. I will always find an excuse to make fun of the French. But yeah, like most people, it was funny because I was talking to this guy. He's a casual acquaintance, and he is a white guy with a Japanese wife, and he has mixed kids, and they go back to visit his in-laws frequently, and so he's very familiar with Japan, and he's fluent now, but especially in the early years in their marriage and everything, he was not fluent, and he's like, Japan is one of those countries where playing up what a tourist you are kind of work to your benefit because you can play kind of like the bumbling tourist as long as it's clear that your intentions are good. You know, the Japanese really embrace that. And I was like, that has been my experience also. Although I can't pull it off as well because I have often been told I look half Japanese. And so people expect me to speak Japanese often. When I am with someone who is not East Asian looking, like I have traveled to Japan with a white girlfriend with red hair, and whenever were together, everyone spoke to us in English. And when I would be off by myself doing something, uh, everyone talks to me in rapid fire Japanese. I think I may have told this story before. So I went to Japan and I studied indigo with this guy, and he is white, but he's lived in Japan for 30 years. Okay. And he has been studying Japanese craft for 30 years. And so he's as Japanese as I'm American. Okay. And his Japanese is fluent. He reads legal documents in Japanese, which that's crazy. Okay. Anyway, so he's leading this field trip, and like during the middle of the workshop, he took us to like what can be equated as like a Japanese Target, like a little inexpensive department store for us to like pick up any toiletries or snacks that we wanted in the middle of our workshop. And I wanted to buy Japanese beauty products. This was back in 2016, before it was like a huge thing, but like I had all these screenshots of Japanese beauty products that I wanted to try out. And I was like, "Hey, I want to where can I find these?" He asked around, and he was like, "Oh, upstairs." And so I ran upstairs by myself, and I found all the stuff, and I'm at the cash register, and because I look just Japanese enough, Uh, the cashier starts talking to me in rapid fire Japanese, and I'm like, mm. And my indigo teacher, the 6'1", 6'2" white guy, he starts talking to her in rapid fire Japanese. He had basically come to check up on me and had kind of slid up behind me while I was at the cash register when she started talking. And so the white guy is talking to her in rapid fire Japanese. And I'm standing there stock frozen. And he turns to me, he's like, "You don't want to store a credit card, did you?" And I'm like, "No." And like the cashier is like watching this exchange, like, what? But yeah. Anyway, I'm going back to Japan. I think sometime this year because I've never been to Hokkaido, so I want to go up north. Do 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 do. Da da da. Okay, I'm here to learn English. Blah blah blah. Slim Pickens says, "What's a moment from your career that still makes you smile, and what shifts in the industry can you predict?" A moment in my career that still makes you smile would probably be the friends I made because of this channel. Um, I've met some cool folks and they have bled into my regular life, and they are going to be the things that I take from my channel forever. And it's so funny because I've met so many really interesting people and important people and cherished people because of the internet, that as much as I can rail against the internet sometimes, listen, the internet giveth and the internet taketh away. It giveth so many opportunities and acquaintances and interesting things. And it also can taketh away some of your sanity. So it is what it is. What shifts in the industry can you predict? Listen, the AI bubble is going to burst. And it's not going to burst as much as someone is going to not pop it with a pin, but slide a pin in it and just let the air in it just slowly, just like, and if you read just overall AI news, not even just like AI in fashion, but overall AI news, it's circling the drain. It's circling the drain. People are tired of it. People don't like it, especially in creative industries. And the bubble is going to burst. Okay. That's why sometimes you kind of have to like just hold on and wait and see. Like, you remember during COVID when everything was about the metaverse and NFTs and Bitcoin, and we were all like, everybody was making NFTs of real art, and there were all these lawsuits. And I was also tracking some of these lawsuits because I wanted to see the future of trademarking and NFTs and how it was going to affect trademarks in fashion and all these sorts of things. But where are they now? Anybody who bought Bitcoin is now a joke. And the metaverse has so much money was invested in the metaverse. There's 800 people in it. That's, that's it. And so sometimes it's worth it to just not be the early adopter and just chill out. I have half a Bitcoin. It was gifted to me. I have no idea what to do with it. Sometimes certain technologies, not all technologies, certain technologies are not compatible with the real world, much less creative industries. I am team more AI to detect cancer and less AI to write poetry and paint illustrations. Okay? The medical advances that are being made, aided by AI, are interesting to track. Okay? AI will never replace doctors, but if it can be used to for specific technologies to help people live better lives, sure, why not? We don't need AI to make us book covers to live better lives. If you can't just freaking dish out some money to hire someone to paint your book cover, go save your money. Like, I don't feel sad for you that you can't afford a cover artist and you had to resort to AI. I don't. Oh, the other day, someone wrote a post on Threads saying, I'm never going to buy a sewing book from somebody who can't tell the difference between interfacing and batting. And hard agree, because knowing the difference between interfacing and batting is like a sewing 101 thing. It's not super advanced at all. Okay. And so I opened the comments to see kind of the conversation, and people just were thinking that this person had written a lot of their book with AI, and people are going to get tired of that real quick. If I am happy for one thing, it's that my whole channel, I mean, first of all, most of my videos, the vast majority were done before AI was a thing. And so that if there are any mistakes, it's just me and sometimes the passage of time outdating some of my information, or me simply making mistakes because I'm human. But honestly, it's just me being a real person trying to teach to the best of my knowledge and not using some fucking AI, excuse my French, generated, BS. And I think that the backlash to that is people are going to go a little bit more old school. I think that's kind of always what happens, is there's always like a whiplash effect where, and sometimes we overcorrect a little bit, kind of like when you're driving and you hit a pothole and you kind of overcorrect your steering wheel if you're a beginner. And so I think AI is on its way out in a lot of respects. Even if it's not, please keep in mind that at the end of the day, fashion ultimately is a tangible product category. Okay? The whole point of fashion is you are making tangible product out of tangible materials. You have to offer someone an actual shoe that goes on a foot, an actual shirt that goes on a body. And so, whatever AI tools you use to get there, ultimately, you have to understand fabric, you have to understand construction, and you have to understand fit, because you have to make tangible product that goes on a body. We tried the metaverse, it didn't work. Okay. Like, as soon as the pandemic was over and as soon as we could go out and shop in an actual store and put real clothes on our bodies, we did. Okay. That was a stopgap for boredom when we couldn't leave the house. It's like the only possible scenario where that kind of situation would come back again. People are always on video games. People love a video game. That doesn't necessarily translate to the metaverse. So do keep that in mind, no matter how. And there are some AI tools that have nothing to do with creativity. There are tools that help you source sales data. I'd be into that. If I had a fashion business today and they told me there was some sort of tool that helped me sort sales data so that I could merchandise out my collections, I would hear that out before I heard out somebody who was like, I mean, learn to draw flats, learn how to make clothes. Like, I don't really understand people who want to be fashion designers but not learn clothes or accessories, whatever the product category is. It's like, where does your love of fashion come from if it's not to geek out about the product you want to make? Like, I don't get that. So, look at South Korea, Japan, China, Vietnam. For what? That was a vague comment. Melty Snow Pear says, I'm a recent fashion grad looking to niche into knitwear design. Do you have any recommendations for how I should move forward or any tips for my portfolio? Did you study knitwear in fashion? Because it's really like a specific thing. And it also kind of depends on whether you want to do cut and sew knits or fully fashion knits. Because so the difference between those two, so fully fashion, cut and sew knits are basically any sort of like they are made closest to woven clothes, where you make a pattern, you have a fabric, and you cut the pattern out of the fabric, whether it's a chunky knit or a thin jersey knit like this. Um, and then you sew it together. And of course, the kinds of stitching and seams and the patterns and how you notch knits and stuff, they're all different, but it most closely resembles just making woven garments. And then you have fully fashioned knits, which I always encourage people to get into because it is a more sustainable method of making clothes, because fully fashioned knits are where you construct the garment fully out of stitches. And so the pattern is like 27 stitches along one row, next row, 27 inches, next row, 26 inches, 25 inches. So it starts nipping in, whatever, right? And so it's all about the stitches. And when you make a fully fashioned knit, you're constructing it with stitches so you are not cutting away excess fabric. You don't have fabric scrap. Once you have stitched enough stitches out of the yarn, you just cut the yarn off and then you use the yarn another day. Okay. And usually that results in a lot less waste than cut and sew garments. But the things that you have to study and the things that you have to know are really different depending on whether, like, what area of expertise you want to get into. And also, even within, let's say, just cut and sew knits, like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about more like sweaters and twin sets and chunky knits where you could see individual stitches? Or are you talking about cut and sew knits in terms of t-shirts? You know, like when I was starting fashion school, like James Purse was coming up in the scene. He was the original like luxury t-shirt designer, where the emphasis is really on the cut and the materials, really about the materials. And so are you doing that? Are you thinking about pursuing something in the intimates, where you're talking about things that fit close to the body? Are you talking about power stretch, which is like athleisure, sports bras, leggings, things that are stretchy but very tight to the body, performance fabrics? So I think you need to take some time to think about really where you want to sit. Like there's so much out there in terms of knits. Like I don't know the exact numbers, but I would venture to say that we wear more knits than wovens these days, especially with people loving stretch fabrics and less people knowing how to fit clothes and make proper patterns. And so you kind of have to like more study like where you want to be in the knits world, and that'll help inform what you need to study next. Because if you want to niche in knitwear and you're already graduated, you still have to study on your own specific knits and knitwear design. Carol Brown has a book called Knitwear Design that was often my go-to for like high fashion knitwear design book. It's in my Amazon storefront in my book recommendations. That's a good book to look at. But if you're more into like lingerie, there's Lingerie Design by Pamela somebody. That's a good book. And that also has some pattern making and construction in it. Whereas the Carol Brown Knitwear Design book is just design, and she interviews a lot of knitwear designers and has a lot of like design techniques in it. There's a pattern making book someone wrote recently that's all about athleisure. And so if you're going to get into performance fabrics, athleisure, power stretch, power mesh, all those things, and then if you want to pursue that even more, I would recommend you attend a trade show that sells the kinds of knits that you want to design so that you could study further. No matter what it is that you do, the understanding of the fabrics is going to get you far. There's not a designer in the world who is not going to benefit from more fabric knowledge. Like even I am always like interested in learning more about fabrics because fiber technology is always moving forward. And so that's kind of, figure out where in the knitwear space you want to be and study that, and study how different fibers can affect the different knits, jersey versus interlock versus double knit, those kinds of things like that. Who are you? Who am I? Okay. Judette, I really appreciate this advice, Zoe. Oh, thank you. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Catherine, OMG, don't get me started on the whole 3D clothing. It's the bane of my work life. I mean, it is an interesting bit of software, and I prefer it to AI. I think it has much more practical applications than AI. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's still about putting clothes on bodies. Okay, what is this stupid conversation that's going on? Do, 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 do. Rachel, nobody cares except the French. I've heard so many people say that. Listen to me very carefully. This is the most ridiculous French people story I have in my personal life, okay? Years ago on the main channel, I did a video called What is Haute Couture, okay? And it was just about like people use this term couture loose, and it can mean a lot of things, but there's actually a very specific way to use the term haute couture. And so I made a video about it. And I think I said in the beginning of the video, like, listen, is my French pronunciation perfect? Not even close. Are you going to understand what I'm saying? Yes, you are. Okay. So get over it. All right. Moving on. And so, I do say a lot of French terms in the video because haute couture is a French term, and I was using other French terms to help me explain haute couture. And in the comments, okay, one French person said, you know what, Zoe, your French was just fine. We understood what you were trying to say, and that's the important part. And I appreciated that. I'm like, thank you. And then someone was like, yeah, it's fine, but I would have pronounced this like this. And then there was an argument amongst French people in my comments about how I could pronounce different things to sound better. And then other French people were coming to my defense about I'm not French. I've never studied French, and therefore my French pronunciation was pretty good considering. And then other French people were like, yeah, but this is how you pronounce this. And then other French people were like, no, actually, this is how you pronounce this. And I'm like, that's all I need to know about French people. Okay. When I go to France, I always step into a business and say bonjour. I greet people, I smile. It lets them know I'm American, apparently. I try to be as polite as possible. I do speak like 3 phrases. I'm not going to say them here. Otherwise, people will laugh at me. But I try to be as polite as possible. I learn greetings in whatever language that I'm going to visit. But beyond that, I don't care, okay? Because they can't, like, French people cannot even agree on how I mispronounce things. You think I'm going to sit here and nitpick my own French when they can't even agree on what I'm getting wrong? No. That's all I have to say about that. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Rachel, I'd love to go to Japan someday and learn about historic textile and garment making techniques. That inspires me so much. I think modern creatives could benefit a lot from older traditions. Yeah, I am very interested in learning different older traditions. I think like the roots of clothing making are so interesting because what do you mean? Did you know that the indigo plant is green? Like you get a blue dye out of it, but the plant itself is as green as any other plant. And so our teacher is showing us this like green plant, and he's like, this is indigo. And kind of like when you squish it and it starts turning blue, and it's like, and he was talking about how Indonesians developed indigo in their own special way. And then the differences between that and the way the Japanese developed indigo in their way. And I am like, I love that just hundreds of years ago, before internet, before the Japanese, I mean, they're famously like had isolated themselves, island nation, all of that. Like before there were like a lot of communications between countries, that these, and I'm of course just using this one tiny example. Other countries have their own like natural dyes and everything, but just these two countries had developed these similar plants. They're different plants, but they're similar enough. And they developed these traditions around these plants in similar but not same ways. Like, that's amazing. It's a lot like, when you look at food history and you hear about, and if you think about like some of the food you eat and you're like, who decided one day to just be like, hey, let's eat that? Like, if you think about it, it's like, I'm sure a lot of people died on the way in the progress of us being able to ascertain what is poisonous and what is not, and what is a good way to eat something and what is not. Like, if you think about pufferfish and how people are like, oh, if you don't prepare it right, it's poisonous and you die. It's like, okay, but how did we learn that? And how did you learn the proper way to prepare it so that you don't die? Like, how many people died in the process of learning that? Oh, that blows my mind. That blows my mind. But yeah, I want to learn shoemaking, actually. If any of y'all know of an interesting short-term shoe design or shoemaking course, and I may even travel for it, that would be really cool. Like, leave it in the comments. Violet Femme, glad I caught your last 2025 live. Welcome, Violet. Always nice to see you here. Agree with your thoughts on AI. Thanks, Violet. I'm not even bothering to block all these moronic comments because this is my last live stream and I don't care. And yeah. Rachel says AI in medical fields is already doing great things, but I wish people would stop trying to make AI art happen. It isn't art. It's basically just digital vomit. Lori Bledsoe, digital vomit is a good term. It is. It's a good term because that's really what it is. It's like, it's scraping the internet for things that everybody else already did, kind of mashing it together and then just like regurgitating it according to some prompts people put in because they refuse to pick up a pencil and make some mistakes. And I'm not even saying that these people can't necessarily paint. They probably just never even tried, or they tried once and decided they didn't learn it immediately, and so they're not going to try anymore. There are a lot of people like that, and there have been historically a lot of people who decide that if they're not good immediately, they're not going to learn or try anymore. But now people just have this stupid whacked out tool to cover. No. Hold this. Is there fabric on your walls? No, it's like it's paint on kind of like a raw wood that is made to look like concrete. That's why I have a couple of followers on here who joke that I'm in a prison cell. Eyebrows are perfection. Thank you. What happens if I eat too much holiday cake? Maybe eat less holiday cake for a little while. Balance. I'm a fan of cake, but balance. Hey Zoe, I think your volume could be increased a little bit. I have a hard time hearing you with full volume on my headphones. I cannot do anything about it at this point in time. Sorry about that. People have been sending me flowers. Thank you for that. My wife, the milkman's kid said, the milkman's kid. Dude, your username. My wife gave up knitting. Now she just buys stuff. I actually made some nice sweaters though. That's good. Knitting is hard. I've tried knitting on a few occasions. and it is not my jam. I don't think I'm very good at counting because I get distracted. Not that I don't know how to count or how numbers work. I just get distracted. Rachel, I tend to be very improvisational when I'm designing clothes. How important is it for me to be able to make stuff that looks just like the sketch as someone who would have their own business? Your initial sketch can be whatever you want it to be, but eventually it has to get to a point where you're on the same page with everyone you're working with. And you eventually are going to need a final flat sketch that you can use with your factory, with your sales team, so that you have a working flat on your line sheet so that people can order based on your flats. Your initial sketch is just your initial sketch, and it doesn't have to, it can just be the inspiration point for if you are draping something or if you're someone who likes to do first patterns on their own. But eventually you're going to have professionals make your garments for you, make your samples, make your production. And so it's going to have to lead to a point where uh, you're all on the same page in terms of a flat sketch. Natasha says, is there a good platform for searching fashion related jobs? I think Business of Fashion has a job board. Vogue Business has a job forum, but the Vogue Business Forum is for, I think, don't quote me, less design related and more business side related jobs. But I would still go check it out just in case I'm wrong. What is that forum? I think one granary. Wait, let me look it up really quick. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, one granary. Um, they call themselves the leading global fashion education platform and creative network, but they have fewer subscribers than me. So whatever, on the main channel, not this one. And then there is Caliber Careers, Calibre, also posts jobs. They post it on their social media also, because I'll randomly see job posts of theirs on Threads. Like I don't follow them, but you'll just randomly see stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm wrapping up. We're approaching the hour mark, so I'm wrapping up the questions. Hi, Zoe. I want to start my own small fashion brand in Ireland. What advice do you have in terms of balancing the desires of my customer and staying true to what I want to design? I mean, I don't have any advice on that. You just have to do it. It's going to be different for everyone. On Because it all depends on like how wild your concept is and whether there is a customer for it. But yeah, I mean, you're ahead of the game by acknowledging the fact that you do have to balance the two things. But if you start straying too much, like your design dreams and wants are straying wildly away from what your customer actually needs, you might have to rethink what your brand is all about. And I think you need to take some time to develop your brand story from the beginning before you start going down this path, because that's really like what you eventually want to do with your brand, and the story you want to tell is going to be your guiding light for the product you want to make. And some of it definitely is in terms of what your customers want, but you also have to predict what your customers are going to need and guide them into what you think they're going to need. So I don't have any specific advice for you because your question is very general, and the answer is going to be a little bit different depending on your specific circumstance and the specific problem that you are having. Aloha from Hawaii. Hello. Abby, P.S. I got your book and workbook for Christmas and I'm loving them so far. Thank you. Please do drop a book review if you get an opportunity. Thank you. Melty Snow Pair. I'm the one who asked about knitwear. Sorry, I didn't specify. I meant fully fashion knits. Like you mentioned, I love the sustainability aspect of it and the cover. My program didn't get very deep into fully fashion knits. So I'm self fashion knits, self studying myself, and about to get a domestic knitting machine. Thanks for the Rex on the books. It sounds like I'm on the right track with my research. Yeah, definitely study yarns. And they're, all the things I talk about when it comes to fiber content for things also applies to the different yarns because um, pretty much all those things, all the different fibers that are available for wovens are also available in yarn form to be making fully fashioned knits. And so definitely study fiber content and how that impacts and whether there are more sustainable options. Like I went to the James Purse sample sale a few months ago and I got a recycled cashmere coat. And there's a lot of conversation around the quality of cashmere depending on the price point and stuff. And I mean, it's recycled cashmere, but it feels incredible. Incredible. But yeah, like definitely study your fibers, study sustainable method su- uh not substitutions, but alternatives to the knits. Yeah, I would definitely recommend the Carol Brown book because it's just really interesting and beautiful to look at. Um, that sort of thing. There was also, there was a knitwear company who wanted to work with me, but we could never get it together. No shade to them at all. It just timing and just it didn't work out. I can't remember what they're. But yeah, definitely go visit a trade show that does yarns, that does knits, that sort of thing, that does production for knits and stuff. Rachel, true story. One time when I was a girl, I was trying to pronounce some French word that included the French R, and I accidentally gagged myself a little, and that memory has haunted me ever since. So I took Russian in high school, and I had two teachers in the classroom for the first couple of years. We had our regular American teacher who was fluent in Russian, who studied Russian for a long time. But then we also had a visiting teacher for a while who was a Russian woman from Russia. And she told us that if you're a Russian kid in Russia and you can't roll your R's, they send you to like speech therapy class. And there was like a whole class. I mean, it's high school, so each class is like 50 minutes long, but there was a whole class where we were all practicing rolling our R. uh, but like, I swear, like Russian has the hardest way of saying hello. It's like здравствуйте. It's like how many consonants can you string together and still like pick out all the consonants? Catherine, in the current world, do you think there is still a space for small bespoke design houses? I was just in India and I met a woman with her own bespoke clothing business. I was so inspired. Yeah. Yeah. There are always going to be people who want what other people do not have, who want something that is unique to them, whether it's in terms of design or fit. I think people are actually more into something that fits them really well than like having the only one of like something in the whole wide world, but just something that fits their bodies. As body conforming undergarments have fallen out of popularity, and as women who liberate themselves from this societal pressure to be a particular size, and there's just so many different bodies now because we're not being conformed and not conforming. Our clothes have not caught up to dressing all these bodies. And it used to be that people in specific countries, not all, but there are a lot of people of a race that have similar body types. Like Lululemon has an Asian fit for their leggings, and it includes a shorter inseam and a wider calf. Because a lot of East Asians in particular have shorter legs and wider calves. Not all, of course, but a lot of them. And so, but as people travel and immigrate to different countries and live in different spaces, our bodies are also just everywhere now. And not just like, hey, we're going to focus on an East Asian fit in these regions. It's like there are all different kinds of bodies now everywhere. And then we have more and more interracial marriages as we travel and immigrate and move around in the world. So, yeah, like this idea of nailing fit for the masses is so hard. And people are going to want something that is more bespoke to them. And there are going to be people who pay for that. I think that's why, I mean, lately Vietnam has been getting really popular. Number one, as a travel destination that is pretty inexpensive. Number two, people using Vietnam as an export hub because of the Chinese tariffs. Number three, because people learned that there are all these tailors in Vietnam who can make them custom clothes in a relatively short turnaround for relatively cheap. And so this is going to kind of be a more widespread thing. I don't know how popular it is going to be in Western countries where the cost of labor is so high. That remains to be seen, because at the end of the day, most people are still reticent to pay a lot of money for clothes. There was this woman on Threads who she wanted to get a zipper on a coat replaced. And the person she spoke to quoted her either $30 or $35. And she was like, I need someone cheaper than that. And I was pleased about this, but the collective internet that saw this post lost their minds. And she got so many comments saying, hey, can you tell me who that tailor is? Because that's a really good price. And I want to hire them to replace my zipper. It's true. It's true. Like, people do not understand the price of labor. I mean, not everyone, but like there are still plenty of people who are like, I mean, there are a lot of kind people in the comments who are breaking down like a coat zipper will cost anywhere from $5 to $10 right off the bat. And then you have to take it out and put it in. And then you have to stitch around it to close up like there's a lot of things involved. But there are still going to be people who are like, why does this cost $100? And it's like, well, which is why I made that video. Like, why is my polyester dress $300? Not to defend $300 polyester dresses, but to explain how costing works. So there's still going to be people who don't understand that, but there are still going to be people who are like, yeah, this is special to me, and so it's worth it. Natasha, I would love to learn shoemaking, but like, where does one even start or find a valid mentorship? That's what I'm trying to say. I have a shoe brand idea in mind, but I don't know anything about designing shoes or making shoes, so I want to take a shoemaking class. I think there was one in Italy. I don't know. Dupioni Lady says, I believe Nicole Rudolph, the costume historian, historical shoemaker, has many shoemaking videos on her YouTube channel. Ooh. All right. Okay. Hold on. Let me write that down real quick. All right. Just for a peek at shoemaking. Yeah, thank you. Eleazar says, Rachel, I've also thought about how looking at the past, there are so many methods for sustainable design, different ways of making zero waste patterns, natural dyes, things like that. Yeah. For a while, and I threw them away when I left Oakland, but for a while, I was collecting avocado pits because I heard you can dye natural fibers lovely shades of a soft, slightly muted pink out of avocado pits. So I was washing and saving avocado pits in the freezer, and then I never got around to it. And I was leaving Oakland. I'm like, what am I going to do with this gallon freezer bag full of avocado pits? Maybe I should start collecting them again. Rachel, one of the best things I heard about AI is that image generating tools are scraping other messed up AI images, and that's corrupting their results. Lol. Yes. That's hilarious. That's what they get. Catherine, second, the Nicole Rudolph shoemaking videos. Awesome. Rachel, I appreciate you answering my question. That's really helpful to know. You're welcome. ACNMB, are you planning any new content on your Patreon? It's not totally fine. I still love the courses you already created. Um, yeah, no, I think I'm just really focusing on the book club and movie club and my monthly meetups. Those are the three things that I have going on my Patreon right now. Of course, if you are at the right tier level, you can access the archives to my classes, or you can just buy the classes, just buy the drawing flats class, just buy the fashion design process class. If you buy the class just outright, you have access to them for, you know, however long the internet lasts, whatever. Um, so there's that. And somebody suggested to me to start a sewing club where, because she was talking about the book The Art of Fabric Manipulation, which is a book that I also recommend and enjoy. And she was talking about how we could do like one tutorial in the book a week, and just do it in the chat thread where we're all like learning how to make these things and practicing them and showing each other skills we're developing. And it's an interesting idea. I don't know how much work I want to do next year, to be honest. Like, I have my medical to do list is ridiculous. And so, and it's also going to involve some surgical procedures that's going to require some downtime for me. So, that's kind of where that is right now. Natasha, thank you for your long run making great educational content. I'm excited to see you reemerge when you find your new niche. Good luck and best wishes from me, a longtime viewer. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Rachel, you rock. I hope you enjoy the hell out of your sabbatical. Have a great 2026. I'll see you on Patreon eventually. Yes, I want everyone to have an amazing 2026. You know, the channels are both up for you to watch whenever you want. You know, most of my tutorial, like almost all my tutorials are on the main channel, but they're still available for you to watch whenever you want. Go ahead and watch them. Let me get my ad money. But no, really, like I left it there so that you guys can continue to watch because most of my content is evergreen content. So yeah, enjoy, learn, have a great 2026. Abby, thank you for answering my question. I will follow your advice. Randy, I hope this is not a goodbye. I mean, you could join my Patreon and just keep seeing me. Catherine, thank you for your response. Shout out from Somalia. Shout out Somalia. Natasha, what do you think about grants for funding fashion brands and funding learning new skills, for example, like shoemaking? I don't know because I've never looked into it. So, yeah, I don't know. Or any funding behind learning new technology. Yeah, I don't know. You're going to have to research that on your own. Should be a universal one size fits all on everything: shoes, socks, pants, underwear. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like the human race is a beautiful, varied race. Even if we're just talking strictly dickly physically, like, dude, when I was getting my MRI last week, I was like in the tube of death. Like, I swear to God, getting an MRI feels like being buried alive in a tubular coffin. I hated it so much. And the top of the tube was like 68 inches from my face. And I just felt so tight in there. And I previously never thought that I could be claustrophobic. But I'm like, what about people who are bigger than me or have bigger heads than me? So their faces are even closer to the top of the tube. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ugh. Yeah. ACMB sounds good. Thank you. Have a safe recovery on your sabbatical. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dupioni Lady says, I believe there's a shoemaking kit by Amanda Overs that you could try too. Okay. Amanda. Oops. Amanda Overs. Oh, yeah. Ali The knowledge I've absorbed over the years from your channel has been vast. I hope your health improves. Everyone have a good 2026. Listen, the learning is in the doing. It is not enough to just watch my videos. That's a start. But I want you all to remember, learning is in the doing. And so your drawing skills are not going to improve just because you watched me draw and you have a list of the technique in your mind. The learning is in the doing. You're not going to learn anything until you actually do the steps to render the denim or draw the leg. All right? Same goes for any pattern making skills, any sewing skills, all of that. The learning is in the doing. So please watch the video and then go do the thing. All right? Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, everyone. Have a great 2026. Have a great new year. Have a great 2026. Learn, have fun, have rest. Learn how to talk to people. Enjoy. And I'll see you on Patreon. Okay? I'll see you on Patreon. So, yeah. Bye, y'all.